I mean, the whole purpose of scripting plays at the beginning of a game is because you're trying to get the other team to tip their hand on how they're going to defend what you do in certain formations, situations, things you can learn from that you're going to play off of later in the game.
We got Scott Grayson joining us from Fox 29. He joins us right now here on Birds 365. You can follow him at S Grayson, Fox 29. Scott, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing on a Football Friday today?
I'm good, man. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Good to see you, Scotty. We'll start. You were there for the MetLife debacle. I think that surprised all of us. What do you think happened in that game? There's a lot of they got out physical, which was atypical of the Eagles. But generally, they don't lay eggs like that. How do you explain that egg?
It just seemed like the perfect storm. I mean, the short week, you would have thought coming off the loss to the Broncos, they'd have been more ready than less ready. But, I mean, they were flat. They had no energy. I mean, you saw it. They had no energy. They were flat. They were out physical. They were out. Yeah. The Giants, frankly, won every single one of the 53 guys that were active wanted it more than the Eagles. I mean, it was hard to watch. You're right. I have not seen them, even in the 23 collapse. I don't remember them coming out that lifeless and confused. And I mean, as plain as they were at times under Desai with defense, I mean, they were so, Lane Johnson said it after the game. They were predictable. I mean, it was just tough to watch. It was not what we've seen out of this team under Nick Sirianni.
Those Thursday games, I'm glad you brought that's a part of it. They're awful. They are awful, especially for the road team. And I know the Eagles didn't have to go far, but
right.
Still, it's just you don't practice that week. You don't do anything. You do a couple walkthroughs and you're right back on the field.
And it's. I think teams like it when they win it because they get that extra time after. When you lose it and you have to sit with that for a few extra days, it obviously. I mean, I think the Eagles needed the little extra time. Because they did come out looking a little bit better in Minnesota. Obviously, still a lot to work on, but I mean, the extra time at this point is where. That's why I think they're back in the same boat. I mean, you got to win this game because you go into this bye week then feeling a little better at 6-2. Sounds a lot better than 5-3.
Yep. And
you've got that extra time where I think again this coaching staff just needs that extra time. The players need that time to heal up from where they are right now. To go into the second half of the season just feeling a little bit better about where they are, who they are, and what they're trying to fix.
Scott, how do you feel about this team through 7 games right now? I mean, we're coming off a season, Scott, that was historic in so many ways, and they did it by running the football and by dominating defensively. Through 7 games, those two things don't apply to the 2025, at least not yet. So they're still 5-2. They're still a team that knows how to win. But they're a very different team in a way this year. What do you kind of make of them through seven games so far?
I think what we're seeing is the effects of having a young team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. You have a complex defense that Vic Fangio likes to run, and those guys have to learn it. We saw last year; it took a little bit of time, and once they started getting it, they got it, and good things happened. I mean, let's not lose sight of the fact that the Vikings were in the red zone 6 times last week, and they only got 1 touchdown. Probably a large reason why they won the game. So there are good things. Obviously, we all see the pass rush or the lack thereof and know that Howie has to do more than just bring Brandon Graham back to think that's going to fix it. Getting Nolan Smith back will help at some point. But so what are they? I look at this team and they're still trying to find their identity. And it feels somewhat similar to last year. And I don't want to go on and say the comp is down the road where they're going to also then go win the Super Bowl because that's foolish. But we didn't know what they were going into the bye week last year. It was earlier in the season, and they found their identity coming out of it. I feel like they're starting to find their identity. Offensively, they started to find something with the going under center. A couple weeks ago, they were finding success going no huddle. I don't know why they stopped doing that. Mix it in a little bit. It doesn't hurt. Why not keep guys from the defense on the field and not allow them to substitute? I mean, you can control that. Use it to your advantage. There's things I think that they can figure out identity-wise going out of this bye week on both sides of the ball. And I think what we're seeing again is the youth on defense trying to find their way. I think we're also seeing that they don't have a CB2 right now, and they need one. There's another area that Howie has to try to address. I think they just got a little arrogant looking at the youth they had, thinking they're going to be able to produce and let some guys go that I think, in hindsight, and Isaiah Rodgers perhaps, they would have liked to have kept. That would have made
I
this
don't know.
defense
You
a lot
see
better.
Isaiah the last 2 weeks, so I'm not sure about.
Well, they almost had a pick six
but no,
last
he's
night.
better. He's better than than what they have. But all right, it's like a week away from Halloween. What's today's date?
24th.
So
It is a week away.
yeah, it is. Okay, perfect. It's a week away, so I'm gonna scare you guys. Give you a nice trick rather than the treat. Here's the scariest stat I've seen, and I said it last week, but now it's even more in focus. The Eagles are the only NFL team since 1940. 1940. Let me repeat that. Since 1940, to start 5-2 or better while being outgained in every game. They've been outgained in every single game. Nobody's done that since 1940 and started as well as they have. At some point, is that just reality going to bite them in the you-know-what, Scott?
Well, that's where you do make the comp to 2023. I mean, there were a lot of times where they won games they had no business winning. And they've done that a little bit already this season. And it is scary. I think that is a scary stat. Because it's a trend, right? You are now 7 games in. This is long enough to say it's a trend. It's not a fluke.
Absolutely.
So you've got to fix that. And how are they doing it? Well, because they're letting teams in the red zone and then stopping them. They're blocking field goals and punts and returning them for, touchdowns or winning games by doing. You can't live like you can't expect your quarterback to go out every game and throw a perfect game. I think that's foolish. So they have to. That is a scary stat, because if you continue to try to act like it's not that's where, I really wanted to believe the back-to-back losses would wake this team up to realize you can't just go into a game, think you're going to win it and have the better team on paper and win it. It just doesn't happen in this league. And that is a scary stat. I think that's something that I'm sure Vic Fangio is very well aware of and knows that they've got to squash. And look, they've had the opportunity to outgain other teams. They've started at their own 5 or 10 because they can't catch a kickoff. So
that they traded 2 picks for, by the way, to get a kickoff return.
And no more. Now it's Xavier Gibson. He's won that job. So no more Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
Although now Tank seems to be the backup running back. So we'll see. Although I don't know if 1 carry for 11 yards is backup, but they don't use anybody really other than Saquon Barkley. And that's the biggest issue to me. And I keep saying it, and I can't explain it. I cannot explain. Look, in this era with this offensive line, they have run the football with Miles Sanders. They have run the football with DeAndre Swift, and then they've run the football historically with Saquon Barkley. And all of a sudden, they can't run the football. It is bizarre. You look at individually, Scott, Lane's playing well. Jordan's playing well. Tyler's playing better than I thought he would at this stage. Now Cam and Landon have been banged up and not playing to their level, but they're still better. You see some of these other offensive lines around the league. They're still better than a lot of teams. Why can't they run the football?
If you go back, and I haven't done this, but I have a feeling I know the answer. How many games have the Eagles started and finished with the same offensive line that started the game? Might be different guys week to week, but and
it's going to be different this week. It's going to be Brett Toth at center again.
That's fine. My point is, even if they start that way, will they finish that way?
Right.
Because when you make a change, John, you're out there. Those reps with the first team are limited. And when you have those, and they're going to one guy over another by an 80 to 20% clip, or just even with ones, let alone twos, reps at all. I mean, that chemistry and communication, the more you talk to offensive linemen, the longer you cover these teams and talk these, that is so key. And I don't want to give them an excuse, which I know is what it sounds like, just trying to answer the question. I think there's a lot of chemistry and communication issues that have happened up front. Jordan Mailata will admit he is not having as good of a season as he's had in the past. Landon Dickerson hasn't been next to him for part of that. I think Landon matters that much. You look at Toth, and I think no matter what the coaches say, I think it was just by accident they found that Jalen under center works better. It's because Toth came in and he can't snap the shotgun. So you got lucky.
They
You
claim that's not the
accident.
issue, but I think it's the issue. Yeah.
Right. But so to me, I think coming out of the bye, if you can get a little healthier on that offensive line, maintain a little consistency, chemistry, communication, give those guys an opportunity to work together for an entire 60 minutes, I think that will help. I don't believe Saquon Barkley is for the wear after last season. I just think he's not had the holes to hit. I don't think the play calling has been as good. We haven't seen Jalen Hurts run as much, which I think helped Saquon last year. Whenever Jalen would sometimes keep it and take it, it just froze the defense for an extra second. And those offensive linemen were playing so much better. That's what gave them the 3 to 4 yards before he would even get hit. We're not seeing that. And I do believe that if they can continue to throw the ball a little bit better, obviously not at quite the clip they did last week, it should loosen up the defense a little more. I mean, every team has been going into these games, and you can see it. Saquon Barkley is not going to be who beats us today. And they're stacking the box. They're putting all kinds of run blitzes in there. They're filling it up. And frankly, they're making Jalen have to make some decisions. Now, last week he did a better job with that. And I think, earlier in the season, I just didn't see any creativity, any flow, any rhythm with the offensive play calling. I mean, I couldn't believe, still it baffles me, when in the preseason, I don't know if he meant this or not, but it certainly sounded like it, when Kevin Patullo said he doesn't script plays. I mean, the whole purpose of scripting plays at the beginning of a game is because you're trying to get the other team to tip their hand on how they're going to defend what you do in certain formations, situations, things you can learn from that you're going to play off of later in the game. Blew my mind. So I think it's a mix of everything. The offensive line hasn't played as well. They haven't had the consistency. Saquon Barkley hasn't had the ability to get really into open space. They're running him sometimes too much up the middle when he needs a little room on the outside. Lane Johnson, as you said, has been playing well. Why wouldn't you run more outside of him with a tight end perhaps out there, or putting Fred Johnson out there when they do, and run off of that side a little bit? There's ways I think you can get Saquon out there, and they just haven't been doing it. So I blame everybody on the offense for that, and that is obviously something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, sounds like Scott, you're in the questionable on Patullo so far. I know.
I got to defend Kate.
John's going to come in and defend Patullo, man.
Well, that's one, and I was actually Doug Peterson. I say this all the time. That Doug was the one who taught me that scripting plays is one of the most overrated. Like, it's became a narrative, from the Bill Walsh days, and that's where it started. But Doug told me, usually when you hit the first third down, you're off script. You're off.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you're off script. And Kevin gets in trouble because sometimes he says too much. So what he said was, they script plays, they call them openers. They have openers, but they have such a veteran laden team, they feel comfortable getting off script very quickly. So he said it in sort of a positive way, because we have so many veteran players, so many high IQ players, they can go off it quickly if they need to go off it. But yeah, Doug's the one who told me most overrated thing. I mean, you're off the first third down, you're off script. Now, if you go first down, second down, you're getting a first down, you keep going, it could be perfect, but that's very, very rare. Very rare. So anyway.
There's the chess match that you see in the game, and I have not been sold that Kevin has, particularly even at halftime, made in-game adjustments off of
what he
what
did last week. They came in, Scott, the game plan in that was to run the football, and they did it pretty effectively on the first drive. And
they have been running the ball better early in the game. It's later. It's once you get out of the first quarter, they seem to struggle.
Right.
Yeah, they ran it well against the Giants early in the
They
game,
had like
and
2
then it was
carries to
just
open the game for 31 yards, I think it was.
But in Minnesota, the Vikings really tried to lock it down, and they toggled, and they had a lot of success with it. So, sometimes you're right, but I think last week they did a pretty good job because they went in. They went in with the mindset of we got to get the
Well, how
running game
much,
going.
from your perspective, John, and you were there, yes?
Yeah, no, I was not in Minnesota.
Okay, but from what you saw, going under center seemed to open up a lot of things. And I think sometimes
everybody. I think everybody. And Jordan Mailata was talking about this extensively yesterday.
I saw that.
It gives the offensive linemen better angles. It gives Saquon the ability to get downhill quicker. There's so many things that come from play action. So I don't think anybody denies that. Like if you look at, it makes it much more difficult for the defense to decipher run or pass. If you line up the back to the left of the quarterback or the right of the quarterback, the other defensive end can crash in the gun. So there's a lot of positives to play action. But Scott, the bottom line is all these quarterbacks go through high school and college, and they're not comfortable with it because they're in the gun their entire life.
Packers in college line up in shotgun all day.
So
no, you're right about that. It's a bit of an epidemic, and but it sounds like it should be easy enough to do, right? But I get it when you've played your entire high school and even through college, and I know with Jalen, this is part of it too. They don't like to turn their back to the defense. They don't like to, when they're dropping back, lose sight of whoever might be their first read, second read, and have to pick it up. Yeah. But man, it looked good, and I don't know how you don't maintain or continue to keep that part of, again, like I said, throughout the season, and I feel this way. I think you do too, John. I'm not sure about you, Zander, but like the new NFL, the preseason is weeks 1 through 4. So we're still at that point. We're going into week 4 now, a post preseason, if you will. And I think there's this whole finding your identity at this point that I think this needs to be part of their identity. I think this needs to be part of what they do. And I think it will help open the run game. And I believe that post bye week, with a little bit healthier of an offensive line, they'll find more success with the run, which will open more passing, right? You can kind of see the snowball start working downhill. Defensively, though, they've got to get better pressure. It can't wait until Carson Wentz is holding the ball too long on some key situations in the fourth quarter.
Oh, poor Carson got killed last night, man.
He had a rough night.
Yeah, tough watch. Tough watch, Carson Wentz.
Ooh. Bad luck too, because him and Josh McCown, our old buddy Josh McCown, they're smiling going off at halftime. That's a bad look, man. It's a bad look. But that was a bad situation for them. For the Eagles, I agree with you, Scott, when it comes to, and they had success, so you should continue to sprinkle it in at the bare minimum, I would think. But there are some things.
Real quick though, they did have a historic running game last year without being under center all that much.
That's very true.
But I mean, I get it. Teams adjust, things change. The league, there's a lot of different changes year to year. So I'm not dismissing that. I'm just pointing out that we had a historic running game without lining.
Well, my point is it makes it more difficult for the defense. Play action does make it more difficult for the defense. But there are other things like mechanically, fundamentally. Like, people say, why can't you take this? Well, they can take the snaps. Well, you got 3, 5, 7-step drops that have to be, precise, like a military, drill. And it's not just you pick it up, you spend your whole life doing something one way, and then, do it this way. Muscle memory, all that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more difficult than people make it out to be. But I think it's fair to say they should sprinkle it in more at the bare minimum. They're always going to be a gun team, always, predominantly. But I think it's fair to say that they should sprinkle it in more. I think that there's no question about that.
Well, and the thing that I also believe was a little bit maybe underestimated or underappreciated, be a better word. Everybody makes a big deal about AJ Brown and his wanting the ball and the communication and being on the same page with Jalen Hurts. One of the things I was the deep ball to Devontae Smith, beautiful, right? Well executed. One of the things I was most encouraged by was when Jalen went out of the pocket on AJ's first touchdown and gestured to him to go upfield and then dropped it right in his lap. That was a street yard play, right? That was needing to be on the same page, communication, nonverbal communication. And to me, I was encouraged by that because the what was it? The week before, the deep ball to AJ where he slowed up and didn't run through, and there was lack of communication on that, obviously, or knowing that the ball was coming. And I just that was one of the things I was most encouraged to see. Plus, and then you go on really the dagger play of last week was the slant that went incomplete, and then they did the slant and go. The fourth down, it was totally Jalen and AJ Brown running that, and the slant and go was good because the slant he beat AJ beat his guy. I think it was Isaiah Rodgers.
It was
on that
Isaiah.
play.
Poor Isaiah, man. Yeah,
and so there's I feel like there's some encouraging signs, right? In some of what we might think little things, right? Communication, nonverbal communication, being on the same page. We always talk about it. And I think there were signs of that last week. For all, everybody wants to say about AJ and he's a prima donna and he wants, I heard you guys talking about it when I came on. Hey, John, I mean, I do. I want guys who want the ball. If they're not getting the ball, I feel it's okay for them to be upset about not getting the ball. Just got to be careful about how you do that to not upset teammates. But I mean, everybody knows who AJ is at this point. They know who he is, what he is. He seems like a good teammate behind the scenes. We wouldn't know for sure. But I think a lot of the stuff that we see out there in the media is somewhat generated by fans and interpretations of what they see or how they – does he troll on social media? Would it be better if he didn't do some of that? Sure. Does Joel Embiid do that? Yeah, he does it all the time. Yeah. So
– Good point. He does feel it. He drops a little gasoline on those.
Oh, sure. I think he likes that. I think he whatever he takes to fuel you, right? And if that's what he's got to do a little bit, I think there's maybe some better ways. But listen, man, if he goes out there and produces and wins championships, I mean, isn't that what you want?
Yep, no doubt. Scott, how do you evaluate Jalen Hurts so far this year? 2025 version of Hurts.
That's what I do. Yeah, it's such a long explanation.
That's a good question. I guess I'll start by going backwards. Obviously, last week showed a lot of great things. As John said, I mean, he was hitting his drops and delivering the ball. At times, I think Jalen gets into trouble when he holds the ball too much. One thing I wish he would do more, and he did do a little bit better last week, was when he gets out of the pocket, almost like a Russell Wilson in his prime, keep your eyes downfield. I think he looks to run too many times. Once he gets out, just thinking if he can just get back to the line of scrimmage, there's times just throw it away. He has, in his career, never really done that a whole lot. Once he gets out, he tries to make a play. I respect that, but he doesn't keep his eyes downfield enough where I think he could find an open guy, deliver the ball out of bounds. He's taken some runs where he's lost a yard, lost 2 yards, when he could have thrown it away or just gotten back to the line of scrimmage and maybe had a guy downfield. There's some of that I wish he would do a little differently. Now, I do like the fact, like last year, he is taking care of the ball. Ultimately, to me, one of the biggest keys I see every week is if the Eagles can just tie or especially win the turnover battle, I think they're going to win every game they play. They're that good. But give a team a turnover and it really affects the game. I mean, and we saw that. I mean, the interception he threw when they were down, I believe in the red zone, he had AJ going over the middle of the field. He was open. He could have thrown him the ball. Instead, he went to the sideline to Jahan Dotson and goes the other way. A big problem, big play, big mistake. So where is Jalen Hurts right now? I feel like he's turning the corner a little bit within this offense. I do wish that he would. One thing I do like better that he's done too. He gets down instead of taking hits. In the past, he used to
He's
take
a very
those hits.
smart runner, Scott. Very smart runner.
He has. I just wish that he would give him a little design run here or there, a little bit more, just to help Saquon, because I think teams have started keying on Saquon and believing that Jalen isn't going to run unless he gets out of the pocket and improvises. And so I would like to see them add that a little more. But overall, he's throwing the ball. I think he's throwing the ball pretty well. Obviously, last week he missed some plays in the past. But again, I'm going back to this whole thing. Like, if I believe they're starting to find their identity, then I'm going to believe that Jalen Hurts is going to start to get a little more comfortable in the offense, and then therefore I think we're going to start to see more consistency from him. We'll see if I'm right.
Yeah, to your point, the Eagles are 5-0 when they have a takeaway this season. 0-2 in the games where they haven't had a takeaway. So that ball security taken away, and you mentioned the Giants game was the Cordell blot play where he had AJ open, and for some reason he threw he threw it inside. Cordell got it, game over. But Jalen's thrown it 195 times, Scott, and he's got one interception. Most NFL teams would take that. My biggest question is, are they too ball security conscious at times, which takes away some of the big playability?
Well, and I think that's where AJ gets frustrated. Instead of giving AJ a 50-50 ball, you can see that Jalen will sail it a little bit over his head and out of bounds.
Yeah.
And I'm with AJ on, like, listen, if you want to throw it along the boundary and give him a chance to make a play, if it does turn into a turnover, you give one of the best receivers in the game a chance. He didn't win the ball. I think there's a lot of coach. I would take that. There's times I think I agree with you. He's a little too cautious and protective of that interception stat. And I just wish you would trust certain guys, an A.J. Brown and even a Devontae Smith. A Dallas Goedert in a 50-50 ball, I think, is probably going to win it. At certain times when you need it, you got to have it, or it's a third down. Give them a chance to make a play. Listen, I get it on first down. You want to be careful with it. Okay. Your third down chance to move the ball down and move the chains. Give those three guys, I would especially give a chance, a 50-50 ball. And I think there are times where, like you said, he is overly cautious to the point where you might be missing an opportunity. Plus, if it's uncatchable, you're not getting that flag for a PI. And a guy who's as physical as an A.J. Brown or a physical tight end like a Dallas Goedert might draw those flags.
You're right. And an over legislated league, pass interferences are a big deal, man. And savvy receivers get free yardage all the time. That's a good point, Scott. Now, you mentioned BG. We all love BG. What's not to love? My favorite player I've ever covered on any team. He's just somebody you like to be around. He's one of those people that walks in a room, lights it up. That said, I don't like this.
You don't?
I don't like it from the standpoint of, really? This is what you're dipping into? 37-year-old guy. And look, I think Howie will try to make a trade November 4th, trade deadline coming up. He'll try to add something more. But, boy, I mean, this to me highlights just how bad it's been on the edge.
Desperate times call for desperate measures, right? I agree with you wholeheartedly about BG from the standpoint that, a lot of times with the media, you don't always see players for who they really are. BG has been genuine the entire time, and that part, there's two BGs that they're signing here. Okay, the one behind the scenes who we all see, John, who in the locker room, who is funny, he's genuine, he's a great teammate, a great leader, and he's going to be out there yapping, getting the other team fired up, talking trash with the best of them. There's that guy. Then there's the guy who you have to ask yourself, the player with the shoulder pads on. What is he going to give you? And to me, I'm a little surprised that they're going to run him out there potentially this Sunday. I thought this would be a perfect ramp-up week. You go through the bye, and then you have packages for him that he's a part of in certain pass rush situations, maybe in ways that he can stop the run in a certain rundown. You put him in certain spots. Because if you're bringing him in here, I think the ultimate goal is you want him available in the playoffs to play a role. He's a role player at this point. I got to believe he's going to get maybe, when he's back up to full strength, like maybe 20 snaps or something like that. I think you're picking your spots. This obviously is not the end-all, be-all, hey, we've fixed this whole pass rush thing here. But I think when you look at what you're getting, the BG, the locker room presence, I think they've missed a little bit of that this year. I don't know that this group of leaders has truly done a good job of leading through some of the adversity that they've faced. And I think they've struggled a little bit with replacing some of what they lost in the leadership column over the last couple of years, from a Jason Kelsey to a Brandon Graham. Now you get to bring BG back. What is he going to do? You've got him on the sidelines. He's also a coach. I mean, he's going to be a great coach for some of these younger guys there on the sidelines, seeing things, being able to relay information. Hey, try this next time. Try that. I've seen him doing this when they're watching film, giving tips on where they might be able to beat somebody. They're susceptible to this move. Try that. I think he's going to bring a lot of that. Now, what is he going to give you on the field himself? I'm not saying he's going to go out there and get you 10 sacks. Like, that's not going to happen. And I think anybody who believes that is foolish. But I do like the idea of what he can give you in spots. And I think that's where they've got to be careful to use him in those spots where he can give you the best rep and then go back on the sideline and put it all together. But, John, you were around him a lot last year. I was too. The whole time out at the Super Bowl, I never believed this guy was ready to hang it up. It did not feel like this is what he wanted to do.
And that's another point, though, Scott, is the Eagles didn't want this. And the only reason, as you said, desperation has made them pick up the phone and pull that trigger. Maybe, don't get me wrong. I think those 20 snaps, and I'm with you, it should be 15, 20 snaps, are going to be better than the ones you're getting from Azeez Ojulari, if he's healthy, or Patrick Johnson. So there's that incremental, like, you're getting better for those 15, 20 snaps. But this just highlights this is not going well. And part of it is Nolan Smith's injury. And by the way, they could have started his 21-day practice window this week, and they didn't start it. So this assumption that he's going to be back for Green Bay, I still think that's likely going to be the case, but you have to start wondering.
Right.
And just his stature, 237 pounds, and now this is his second triceps injury. And guess what? The same 300 and plus pound offensive tackles are going to be there when he's back, and they're going to be pushing, and they're bigger and they're stronger. Any concerns over Nolan Smith reaching the ceiling that we all thought that he was going to reach?
Yeah, a little bit, because I expected him to come out. It looked like he was making great progress as the season went on last year, through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl, right? And so when he came out this year, you just expected there to be a little bit more success. Now, I think what we're seeing is the domino effect. Like, how much of the success that we thought we'd see was related to Jalen Carter? Jalen Carter has not been 100%. We know that.
Yeah.
He has not been there for some games. And I think it's really affected what the rest of these guys are able to do, the trickle-down effect. I mean, when you have to take two guys, or maybe even three, to address Jalen Carter, it makes everybody else's job so much easier. And I think Nolan Smith benefited from some of that. I have been disappointed that he didn't come out of the gate a little bit better. But I do believe that some of that is related to Jalen Carter not being 100%. And so, again, going through this bye week and those guys getting healthy, I think there's a lot that can be gained from particularly a Jalen Carter getting healthy that will allow some of these other guys. I expect more from Jalen Hunt. I expect more from Nolan Smith when he comes back. I expect more from Moro Ojomo has shown flashes at times. And then will BG be better because Jalen Carter is taking up bodies?
Jalen Carter helps everybody, man. He
does.
You
And
saw it last week, man.
Yeah.
That pick 6 is all Jalen Carter.
Right. He beats his man quickly, and he puts a lick on Carson Wentz, and it affected
Good
Wentz.
word for it.
I think I would argue that still affected Wentz last night.
Oh,
Yeah.
I agree.
You know,
I agree. He's all banged
Carter,
up.
I think the biggest success for that defense begins with Jalen Carter. He makes the secondary's job easier because they don't have to cover as long. And when he's not in there and he's not 100%, man, it could be a long day for that defense. And so I think Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Moro Jomo, all those guys on the defensive line stand to benefit personally, statistically, from Jalen Carter getting healthy.
No doubt. Scott, do the Eagles win this week or do they get swept by the New York Giants?
It's so hard to beat a team twice, right? I just can't imagine that they would let this team come into their house 2 weeks after losing to them and lose again. I just don't see it. I expect the whole. We were in that locker room, John, up in New York. That is as angry, as frustrated as I've seen some of these guys in a long time. And I expect the revenge factor to be a bit of a role here. I think they want to smack Cam Scatterbo in the mouth. I think they want to beat Jackson Dart all over the place. And I think they want to embarrass these guys a little bit. I think you're going to see a lot more heart, a lot more energy, a lot more attitude from this team. And I don't think they lose this game at all.
Yeah. Good stuff, Scott. Appreciate you joining in today, man. As always, it's always good talking to you here on Birds 365. Make sure you guys follow him at S Grayson Fox 29. Scott, we'll be watching your work, brother. We appreciate you joining today. We'll talk to you.
We kept you late. I apologize, Scott, but you're so engaging. It's your fault. It's your fault. The discussion is so engaging. So I apologize, but thank you.
No
Scott.
problem.
Thank you, brother.